yeah, these are the three stages of price action. Stage 1 or stage 2, doesn't matter, is a trending stage here. Ranging stage is stage 2 here, and transitionary stage is stage 3 here. Those are the three kind of stages of price. Yeah, so these candles here, when you look at them, they're showing us the story of price. They're showing us a story, and that's the story of price. The trending stage is showing us that buyers and sellers are kind of struggling and they can't really decide who has control of price. Buyers are trying to push up. See, they're trying to push up here. But sellers are kind of like pulling down, and then buyers are pushing up, and then sellers are pulling down. So there's this kind of struggle between buyers and sellers. No one can really win over the other. So that's the first stage of price. I'm just going to re-enable the chat real quick, just in case there's any issues, and then disable it if everything's fine. So everything's still fine, guys, with the audio and video. Just let me know in the chat. Anyway, so I'm going to keep going. So when you're looking at the stages kind of tell you the story of price. So right here, what we're looking at is, like I said, a trending stage. Price is just floating up and down, and it's just, sorry, a ranging stage, I meant. Price is just floating up and down, and it's just ranging in between. Then it kind of switches over. It switches over here, around about here. Switches over to a trending stage. And that's, the story we're seeing here, the story of price that we're seeing here, is that buyers are taking control of price. Buyers are taking control of price, and they're pushing price up. Then we get to this point here, the transitionary stage, and what are we seeing? The story at this point is that buyers are struggling to break through this area of resistance. And we can see they're struggling by the candle formations. So that's the transitionary stage. That's the story we're getting now. That's the story of price. After that, we start to see a kind of a reversal of price. We're starting to see a bearish trending stage. So what does this bearish trending stage tell us? What's the story here? Quite obviously, sellers are in control of price. Sellers are pushing down. Bears are in control. Then we go back to a ranging stage. So what's price telling us here? What's the story here? The story is quite clearly that buyers and sellers are struggling to control, and no one can really gain the upper hand, so it's ranging. So that's what I mean by the story of price. That's a basic kind of introduction to the story of price. And when you look at candles, right, candles allow you to read the story of price. So candles are essentially price. Candles are price. So when you look at a candle, right, you don't want to look at the candle as a pattern. You don't want to do that. You want to look at the candle as a story. And I know this is a hard concept to kind of understand, and it might not make sense to everyone, but you want to look at candles as a story. You look at it as a story of what price has done in the last few hours. After that candle closes, let's say it's a 4-hour candle or an 8-hour candle, or whatever time frame that you're looking at. That candle is a story of what price has done in the last 4 hours, in the last 8 hours, however large that candle is. So, what do I mean by a candle story? So when you look at this candle, right, a lot of people will say that this is a reversal pattern, a reversal candle, but no, it's not a pattern. This is just indecision. It's just price kind of undecided as to what it's going to do. Buyers tried to push up. We see that from the upper wick. Buyers tried to push up, but they couldn't maintain that high. So sellers pulled them back down, and it closed kind of near sort of to its open. So this isn't a pattern. This is just a story of what price was doing. This is simply a story. The story here is when price opened, it dipped down a little bit, it pushed up, couldn't maintain its high, and it pulled back down. So that's the story of price. What's this candle going to do next? I don't know. It's not about that. It's not a pattern. This candle is just one candle in the massive story of price, and this candle has its own story. What about this candle here? Is this candle a Harami pattern? I think they're called Harami patterns. I don't know. I don't really know the names for all these candle patterns because I don't really use those names. So, what kind of candle pattern is this? This is just a strong candle showing us that buyers control price. That's the story of this candle. Buyers opened here. Well, no, candle opened here. Buyers took control and they pushed price up. It dipped down a little bit with that lower wick, but this is just a candle showing us buyers are in control of price. That's all it is. So these are not patterns. These are just, they're just representing to us what price is doing. That's why I call it the story of price. Candles represent to us what price is doing and what price has done recently. And yeah, I call it the story of price. So reading the price that creates the candle is much, much more important than knowing some generic list of candle patterns like the one I showed you in one of the first pictures in this webinar. So knowing, like, understanding the story, understanding the price action behind the candle, understanding what formed that candle, why it formed, why it looks like this, is a lot more important than just having this generic list in your head. It's a lot more important than pattern recognition. When you see this pattern, you say that is a reversal candle, but that's not how it works. That's not how it works at all. When you look at this candle has a story, and that story indicates what is coming next, what came before it. And if you fixate on candles, on candles as patterns, without understanding the price behind it, the price that formed that pattern, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So you need to understand the candle story, and you need to be able to read the candle story. And it's really not that hard. All you need to do to read the candle story is just look at it. And when you look at this candle, right, what does it tell you? So the candle opened here, up here. This is the open of the candle. Immediately after this candle opened, sellers took control of price and they pushed price down. So sellers took control of price and they pushed price down. But sellers couldn't maintain their control of price. By the time this candle closed, it had retraced significantly and pushed back up to here. So that is very simply the story of this candle. But, and this is the problem, this is the story of a single candle. When you want to read the story of price, you need to look at a whole chart. You can't look at a single candle. Don't get me wrong. You need to be able to read the story of a single candle, but it needs to be grouped with the story of the candles around it. Think about it as reading the whole story. So you're not just reading a single candle, the story of a single candle. You have to put it in perspective of all the candles around it. And that gives you a picture of the whole story of price, what price has been doing for the past several hours, for the past several days. My point with all this is when you look at a candle, you don't just identify the pattern and go through this kind of filing system in your head and say, my pattern recognition brain software in my head is telling me that this candle means reversal, because this candle doesn't mean reversal. And I'll show you why. So I'm going to need you to remember this candle. So look at this candle and remember what it looks like. And then we'll go to this chart here. Now, on this chart, there are two candles that look very similar to this last candle, two of them. First one is here, and second one is here. Now, these candles alone both have the same story. If you look at just this candle, they both look almost exactly the same, and they both have the same story, and it's the story they had here. Immediately after close, immediately after this candlestick opened, sellers took control of price, push price down, blah, blah, blah. So when you look at these two candles, immediately after open, wait, let me get my more precise drawing tools. There we go. So this candle, when you look at this candle, right, immediately after price opened, push down, we can see that from the lower wick. Sellers couldn't maintain that low, price pushed back up. Then when you look at this candle, same kind of candle. It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. Looks very, very similar. What happened? Immediately after open, sellers pushed price down. They couldn't maintain the low. Buyers pushed price back up. So the story of this candle, when you look at the single candle, is essentially the same. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to look at a single candle. We want to look at all the candles around it too. So let's do that. Let's look at the at all the candles around this one and kind of try and understand why reading the story of the candles is important, reading the story of price is important, and why candles tell us the story of price. So we look at this candle here. We look at the candle before it and the candle before it and the candle before that. So we'll start with this one here. I'm going to use the precise tools again. Yeah, that's better. So we'll start with this candle here. What does this candle tell us? Buyers open, they push price up, they couldn't maintain their high, price came back down a little bit. Next candle, very easily opened, pushed down a little bit, sellers couldn't maintain the low, price pushed back up. Next candle, buyers pushed up, couldn't maintain the high, sellers took control, pushed price back down. Next candle, the one we've been focusing on, sellers pushed price down, sellers couldn't maintain the low, buyers pushed price back up, it closed near its open. So, what are we seeing here? We're seeing quite clearly that price is undecided. It's kind of a ranging condition, one of the stages I was talking about earlier. You can't really do much with this candle. This candle is almost useless. It's just one in many candles that indicates price is undecided. But what about if we look at the candle over here? Pretty much the same candle, very, very similar, but we're looking at it in the scope of all of these candles. Now, this is where when you start reading the story of price, it starts to be more significant and it starts to make more sense and it starts to be more useful to understand the story of price here. It's a lot more useful here because I'm gonna just describe the story of price. So what do we have here? We have a bearish candle. I mean, when it opened, let me remove this. Yeah. When it opened, it did push up a little bit, but not a lot. Most of this candle's life was spent moving down. Sellers had control of price for most of this candle's life. It was dropping down and, it closed pretty much at its low. So this candle indicates sellers were in control of price. That's the story of this candle. Next candle, same thing, indicates sellers were in control of price. So sellers opened up here. Well, price opened up here, sorry. Sellers took control, pushed price down, and it closed down here. Sellers were in control of price. But then we have that candle, the candle we've been focusing on, this one here. And what does this candle tell us? In this case, as opposed to this case where it's useless to us, in this case, the candle tells us that sellers tried to push down, they couldn't maintain that move down, and price pulled back up. It tells us the same thing. But when you relate that to these other candles, we start to see a kind of potential trade set up here. We start to see sellers being in complete control for the first two candles. We start to see sellers hit this area of support, and an area of support is an area in which we know there are buyers. We talked about this yesterday. This is an area which we've pre-placed, and we know there are buyers down in this area. As soon as price hits this area of buyers, we go from candles that are completely controlled by sellers to this kind of indecision. Sellers can't push down anymore. Sellers are stalling. Buyers are starting to fight back. Buyers are starting to take control of price. What candle comes next? Of course, bullish candle. Buyers take control of price. And here you could have potentially entered a trade and the trade could have been profitable. So this is why I say that when you look at candles, you have to stop thinking about them as patterns and you have to start thinking about them as, as price. You need to think about them as the story of price. When you look at your charts, you need to think about it as a story. What's price telling you? And this allows you to answer one of the most important questions that you can possibly ask yourself when you're trading. And that question is, who's in control of price? These 5 words are vital. And I want you to burn these into your memory. Who's in control of price? Every time you look at a chart from today onwards, every time you consider a trade, every time you do your analysis, you need to ask yourself, who's in control of price? It is vital. It is the most important thing you can ask yourself. Who's in control of price? The answer is usually going to be buyers, sellers, ranging, or transitionary stage, transitioning. So who is in control of price? Who's in control? It's a vital question that you need to be able to ask yourself, and you need to kind of understand what it means, which I'm going to go through. on this chart. It's the same chart as the one we were just looking at, but I've highlighted a few examples on this one. So on this chart, we're going to look at who's in control of price. We're going to look at the candle story. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible because I want to move over to a real chart. This is an example chart. I want to move over to some real charts of real trades that we've taken recently, both failed trades and positive trades. I'd rather look at real trades than look at examples, but these example charts, you know, they're kind of nice because I kind of have like a bunch of perfect setups that I can show you. So we'll start with this one right here. We've already discussed this one, so we'll go through it really quickly. Let me get precise tools. Okay, so first candle, who's in control of price? This first candle here, this bullish kind of one here. Price opened, pushed up, couldn't maintain its high, pulled back down. You could kind of say, when you ask yourself who's in control of price, you can kind of say buyers are in control of price, but it's a very small move. So it's still kind of undecided, but buyers are in control of price. Basically undecided, but slanted towards buyers. Next candle. When you look at this candle, you see, you know, you read the story of what it's done. Sellers push down to start with, buyers took control of price, push price up. You ask yourself overall, who's in control of price for this candle? And the answer to that is that, well, I guess it's undecided, but I guess it's kind of slanted towards buyers because buyers did open and close higher than they opened. So it's undecided, but it's slanted towards buyers. Next candle, this one here, buyers pushed up, sellers pulled them back down, and it closed lower than it opened. Who's in control of price? This is a classic indecision candle. It's undecided again, but it's slanted towards sellers. Next candle, the infamous candle we've been focusing on. So this candle here, sellers pushed down, sellers couldn't maintain the low, buyers pulled back up. Again, it's undecided, slanted towards sellers because it closed lower than it opened. It didn't even make a move upwards. So buyers didn't even push up at all from the open price. So again, it's undecided, but it's slanted towards sellers. Next candle, this one here. Who's in control of price? This one, you'd have to say sellers are in control. Price opened, pushed up a tiny bit, couldn't maintain its high. Bam, it came down. It created a new low. So a new low beyond the previous candle. This is the previous candle. Created a new low. So overall, sellers are in control. Next candle is very small. You could say sellers are in control because it barely moved up. So, you know, you're asking yourself who's in control of price the whole way through here. And the answer is always buyers, indecision, buyers, sellers, small move. Basically, all that stuff there is useless. You can't trade there. You can't make any profit there. There's pretty much no potential to take a trade there. That's all useless. So when you ask yourself who's in control of price there, you know, you can answer that question, but it doesn't give you any useful information, not at all. But what about here? You know, this is where it kind of starts to be a little bit more useful. So let's look at these candles. First candle here, who's in control of price? Buyers are in control of price, clearly. Price opened down here, bam, pushed up, and buyers are in control of price. You look at this candle here. What does this candle tell us? Who's in control of price? You ask yourself that question, that vital and important question. That question helps you kind of read the story of, it helps you read the story of the candle because you start to know who's in control of price. You start to understand that. So who's in control of price here? Buyers pushed up, couldn't maintain the high. Sellers pulled them back down. It's indecision, essentially. It's undecided who's in control here. It's slanted towards the buyers because of the bullish body, the white body. But overall, you know, it's indecision. This candle here, who's in control of price? I'm just going to, yeah. This candle here, who's in control of price? This is, you know, very even between buyers and sellers. Buyers push up, they couldn't maintain the high. Sellers push down, they couldn't maintain the low. Price closed pretty much at open. So for the period of this candle, who's in control of price? It's undecided. It's indecision. Next candle, I mean, I'm sure you guys can see where this is going. The next candle, buyers are in control of price. This one here, opened, barely moved 1 pip lower. It just shot up and it closed pretty much near its open. That's a strong bullish candle. Buyers are pretty much in complete control at this point. Then comes this candle right after that big bullish candle. What do we see? We see indecision. We see buyers trying to continue their move up, but they can't because sellers pull them back down. Closes with a bearish body. Doesn't make any significant ground on its way down. It just pushes down a little bit. So this is indecision. Who's in control of price? It's undecided. Both buyers and sellers, kind of have control, but sellers probably a little bit more because they were able to pull price down significantly. Anyway, I'm sure you guys see where I'm going with this. I don't think we need to go through all these examples here. It's gonna be boring. I'd rather go through some real charts. I'm going to enable chat and ask you guys what you want. You guys kind of understand the basic concepts here of asking yourself who's in control of price? Would you prefer to look at some real examples, or do you want to keep going through this stuff? You want me to kind of explain the concept just a little bit further? Chat's enabled, so you can let me know. All right, it looks like everyone wants real examples. Someone said the screen's often blurred. If the screen is blurry, bottom right-hand side, you're going to see a little cogwheel. Just click that little cogwheel. It's like a little gear. Click the gear and change it to 720p. 720p. All right, yeah, real examples. Everyone wants real examples. Tom New Zealand's asking a good question, but Tom, can you save that question till the end, please? Yeah, everyone should switch to 720p as we go over to the real charts, because real charts are going to be a lot harder to see if you're not on HD. I guess it's HD. So 720, there's a cogwheel to the bottom, like down here. It's like a little gear. Click that and just change it to 720p. That's exactly right. 720p, Forex in high definition. All right. Some people want me to explain this further, but it seems like 95% of people want to see real examples. So before we switch over to real examples, just one thing that I want everyone to understand, and one thing that I wanted to explain about this chart. When you ask yourself who's in control of price, the important thing is that when price approaches an area of support resistance, one of these areas that we placed yesterday, and you ask yourself who's in control of price, and the answer comes back as indecision, and price has led into that area, that's what a tradable setup looks like for me. For me personally, that's what a tradable setup looks like. So when you look at this, for example, you see a bearish candle, you see another bearish candle, you see two candles controlled by sellers. When you ask yourself who's in control of price, you would say sellers for this candle, sellers for the next candle. Then for this candle, we've already gone over this example, but when you ask yourself who's in control of price, you would say to yourself, that's indecision. Price is undecided. Sellers are trying to push down, but they can't quite maintain that low. Buyers pulled them back up. Slightly slanted towards the selling side, but overall, this is an indecision candle. Price is undecided, and it's forming on top of an area of support. That's the kind of setup I look for, because that's a strong setup. That is a really strong setup, because that tells us that this area that we've placed is so strong that it can stop this this very strong bearish move, this very strong move by sellers, it can stop it in its tracks, and it has a huge potential to turn it around, and that would lead to a successful trade. So just keep that in mind in these examples that we're going to start looking at. Won't HD zap my data? Possibly. I mean, if you have data limitations, it might do. I doubt it will make that much difference over standard definition, to be honest. I'm not going to talk about trade setups here because this is an example chart. I think this is from like 2015 early. So let's just ignore this and look at actual real examples. Wait, let me, the examples I'm going to show you are all from the forum. So these are all like actual examples of trades we have taken. Like these are actual trades that either me or some of my students in the forum have taken. I was kind of thinking how I would best do this. And I thought that actual trades would be the best way to go, because if we look at actual trades, then you guys would actually, for tomorrow, you guys would be prepared, because you guys would be able to kind of understand the thinking that goes into the trades we take and the logic behind them and how we view them, how we look at price leading up to the trade, how we look at it just before we enter the trade, how we look at it as we're in the trade. Understand all of this and understand how we're looking at trades. So I opted for picking real trades from the forum. Now, I've had problems in webinars in the past when I show trade examples. People are like, oh yeah, that's not a real trade. You didn't really take that trade. You're just cherry picking examples. So this time, just to avoid that, I know like 95% of you aren't thinking that, but just for the people who are, I'm going to actually show you the trades that were posted to the forum, and then we're going to look at them in the actual examples of how they were traded. I've hidden the forum URL here behind this little thing. I just don't want people to try and access the forum because it's a private forum. So, I'm going to show you guys the trades as they were posted to the forum, and then we'll look at them as they were traded. So this is a New Zealand USD short. It was posted on February 22nd, so about 10 days ago. 9 days ago. So yeah, this is the trade. It was posted to the forum. A lot of members took this. I didn't take this trade. I missed this trade. I've been so busy preparing for webinars, for this webinar and for the webinars I've been doing for members. There were like 3 webinars, 2 webinars per week for the advanced course members. I've been so busy with webinars that it's been a little bit crazy, and I haven't really been able to take many trades in the last 2 weeks. So I didn't take this New Zealand USD trade, but it was posted to the forum and it was taken by a lot of my students. So we're going to look at this trade in detail. I'm going to tell you the story of price for this trade. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to talk about the entries. We're going to leave that for tomorrow. Entries are tomorrow. Targets, entries, all that stuff's tomorrow. Today, I just want to describe the candlestick analysis and the story behind price. I want to explain why we considered this a setup and why we thought that the price action was telling us to go short here. We're also going to look at bad trades, by the way. I don't want to show you just good trades. We're going to look at bad trades. We're going to look at some failed trades too, just so you guys see both sides of reading price action, the good and the bad. All right, so this setup here, this is the setup in question. This is the setup that was posted to the forum. Basically what we had here, this is the story of price. This first candle here, this one, buyers had overall control of price. I mean, it did have a nice lower wick here that suggested that sellers might be taking control, but overall buyers had control of price. Price pushed up. There was a weekend gap here. Next candle comes along. And what happened with this next candle? Sellers pushed down, but overall, by the time this candle closed, sellers had been turned around and buyers pushed up and they closed higher than their open, significantly higher than their open. So overall, you would say with this candle, when you ask yourself who is in control of price, you would say buyers are in control of price. Buyers had more control of price. Buyers closed above their high. Buyers did what it is in their nature to do. And it's in a buyer's nature to create higher highs, to move higher, to buy. So buyers bought. That's what it is in their nature to do, and that's what they did. So this candle, when you ask yourself who's in control of price, it's quite clearly buyers. Next candle, this one here. Again, you ask yourself who is in control of price, and the answer is buyers. Buyers, price opened here, buyers pushed up, and they closed up here. Buyers are in control of price. Quite clear, quite easy. Then this next candle comes along. What does this candle tell us? This candle tells us that buyers tried to push up. So, they tried to push up. That's what that upper wick tells us. And they kind of pushed up a little bit, but they couldn't maintain that high, could they? Sellers took control of price and pulled them back down. Price closed pretty much almost on top of its open. Actually, you know what? Just so we could see more of the chart, I just remove that. So where were we? Yeah, that candle indicates indecision. When you ask yourself who's in control of price with this candle here, the answer is indecision. Price is undecided. Buyers tried to push up, sellers pulled them back down. So sellers have not gained any ground. Sellers haven't actually pushed down from open, but they prevented the buyers from pushing up. So when you ask yourself who is in control of price, the answer is undecided, indecision. Next candle comes along, this one here. Ask yourself who's in control of price, and what's the answer? The answer is again indecision, but this time it's leaning towards the seller side. Why is it leaning towards the seller side? Because sellers have managed to make a new low. So the bears, the sellers, whatever you want to call them, they've managed to make a new low, and they've managed to prevent buyers from making a new high. So it's in a seller's nature to create lower lows and lower highs. When sellers are successful in creating lower lows, which is a low from the previous candle, and in creating lower highs, which is essentially preventing buyers from making a new high, that means that sellers have overall control. So this is indecision still. This candle is still indecision. When you ask yourself who is in control of price, the answer is still indecision because sellers have not gained any significant ground down. Sellers have not been able to push down all the way to here, for example. So it's still indecision, but it's leaning towards the sellers. The sellers overall are showing us that they're really starting to take control of price. We went from a market, price being completely controlled by buyers up through here, buyers having complete control and being super strong, to price hitting an area of resistance, which we've placed before it reached here, and price stalling. Price stalls on top of this area, and all of a sudden, sellers start taking control. And this change happens slowly, and, eventually it reverses. And that was this trade. That was one of the trades we took. Well, I didn't take it. Like I said, I personally didn't take this one, but my students took it in the forum. It was shared in the forum. So this is one of the trades we took. And, what I'm trying to explain to you here is the reasoning behind these trades. We're going to look at this trade in detail tomorrow. We're going to look at the entry. We're going to look at why the stop was placed where it was, why the target was placed where it was. We're going to look at, examples of the different traders who took this trade on the forum and, why they exited early. Some people exited early because trading psychology, they got freaked out and they jumped out early. So we're going to look at this trade in vast detail tomorrow. But today, I just want to explain to you the story behind this trade. When you look at it, the story of price, why we done what we done, why we traded it, why we wanted to enter this trade. And, that is essentially the story of price for this setup. It was quite simple. Buyers had control of price. They pushed up. Indecision formed right here. Price stalled, and it stalled on top of an area of resistance that has a recent history of stalling price. All you have to do is look to the left a little bit, and you see a very similar setup here. This setup here is very similar to that one. When price pushed up, strong move up, indecision formed on top of an area of resistance, this one, and it pulled down. It did that again. We didn't really get indecision with this one here, but price pushed up and pushed down. So when it was doing this again, and we got a strong sign of indecision there, you know, it was very similar to what happened here. Very, very similar. And when you read the story of price, the story is quite clear. The story is telling us buyers have control, buyers have control, buyers have control. Whoa, hit resistance, indecision, indecision. We're not sure who's controlling price. Then sellers start taking control, price starts dropping, bam, bam, bam. There you go. That is that is a basic reversal setup, and that's the kind of trades we take. And it's a trade that was taken recently. It's a real trade. And like I said, tomorrow we'll look at this trade in detail and I'll explain to you the entry and all that stuff. But today I just want to explain the story behind this trade. Let's look at AED-JPY real quick. There were two trades on AED-JPY, two recent trades. We're going to start with the earlier one. I'll show you guys this trade on the forum. I think this is the right one. No? Yeah. All right, this was posted by a forum member. And yeah, this was the trade, the way he saw it. And as you see, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people. I think this trade wasn't traded. No, this trade was only taken by 4 people, I think, on the forum. So this one wasn't traded by a lot of people, but it was traded by a few of our students. And this one was one of the recent trades. So wait, was it this one? Let me double check. I just want to make sure we're looking at the right trade. What did Misha post it on? 8 hour? Doesn't. Oh no, I was looking at it wrong. Yeah. Okay, it's this one here. All right, so this one, the story of price is a little more clear. It's a little clearer. So let's look at the story of price for this example. And again, with this example, we'll go into it in detail tomorrow. I will explain the entries and all that stuff tomorrow. That stuff is going to be explained to you in detail. But today, we're just here to discuss the story of price. That's, you know, this is the second webinar in this series. We're just discussing this concept. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss the more advanced concept. So the story of price with this setup. We see this candle here. Buyers have control of price. This candle here, again, buyers have control of price. It has a lower wick, so suggests that sellers tried to take control. But overall, from open to close, buyers pushed up. They closed up here. Buyers have control of price. This candle here pushed down, but it couldn't maintain its move down. It pushed up and it closed a lot higher than where it opened. Buyers had control of price. You'll notice all of these candles, they have higher highs and higher lows. So each candle, each of these 3 consecutive candles closed higher than the previous candle, and it didn't manage to move any lower than the previous candle. So that's a trending stage there. That's, you know, that's a preceding trend is what I call it. It's a trending stage. It's not a major trend. It's a small trend, but it's a trending stage. It's buyers having control of price. Then what happens? Buyers hit an area of resistance. And what happens when they hit this area of resistance? What does this candle tell you? This candle is very clearly indecision. Buyers tried to push up. They tried to break through this resistance area. They tried as hard as they could to break through this resistance area, but they didn't quite manage, did they? Buyers pushed up. Sellers took them back down. Bam, it closed down here. And what comes next is a break below the low. So sellers take control of price. Took a little while, but they pushed price down. So this is pretty much just another example of a good reversal setup. It's a pretty decent reversal setup. Buyers have control of price. They approach an area of resistance, and sellers take control of price and they push price down. And again, this mirrors previous trades from this level, and this is why this level was placed. We got a move up to here, sellers took control of price. A move up to here, sellers took control of price. This one here, the second one I'm showing you here, we don't have the actual indecision there, so this one would have been harder to trade. But my point is that from this resistance area, price had pushed up and bounced away, pushed up and bounced away twice. So next time, and this is the time that it was traded, Next time that buyers push up, price gets stuck on this area, then it becomes obvious what's going to happen here. And if you trade it properly, there's profit to be made here. And the story of price here is telling us buyers had control, indecision hit resistance, and price came tumbling down. Jack Heck is asking, the first bullish candle closed lower than the open. I believe this is just a weekend. 19th, 21st. This is a weekend. So this was the Friday. And then this was the Sunday candle, Sunday/Monday candle. That's why there's a gap there. It's just a normal weekend gap that you always get. So what I'm driving at here, guys, and what I want you to understand, what I want you to be prepared for tomorrow when we discuss the actual trades and I explain how and why I'm entering these trades, and I explain my entries, not only my entries. Like I said, I didn't take all these trades. Some of these trades are taken by members of the forum and not by me personally. But when I explain the entries behind these trades, why they were traded, I want you to start to today I want you to understand the thinking behind it and the concepts behind it, the logic behind it, why we're seeing these as setups, because that's the most important thing to understand. You need to understand that before you start to understand the actual entries and why they entered there, why the stop loss is there. Okay, so let's look at some failed examples. And I think Tom is here, because I could have swore I saw someone called Tom New Zealand typing. I'm not sure if it's the same Tom New Zealand, but I'm assuming it is. This was another trade posted recently, 23rd of February. This is a failed trade. It was posted by Tom. Oh, there you are, Tom. I thought you were here. Okay, so this is a failed trade posted by Tom. But as far as trade setups go, it was a good trade setup. It was a trade setup that I would have taken, but it was a failed trade. It failed, unfortunately. But, that doesn't make it a bad setup. That doesn't make it a bad trade. It was just, you can't take only winning trades. Trades are going to fail sometimes. It's just normal. Someone just said, ouch, that's painful, Tom. But no, ouch. You can't think about trading that way. Who cares if you fail a trade? It's all part of trading. When you enter a trade, you got to accept that you are probably, well, not probably, but you have, let's say, depending on your win rate, you have a 30%, 40%, 50% chance of losing that trade. But failing is a normal part of trading. You are going to take bad trades. You are going to get stopped out. You are going to fail. And if you start to think, ouch, or that sucks, or oh my God, I lost a trade every time you lose, then in the end, you're never going to be profitable because you're going to start making mistakes. You have to accept that you're going to lose. I accept that I'm going to lose at the moment this year, probably 4 out of every 10 trades. So if I lose 10 trades in a row, then, well, no, maybe not 10 trades in a row, but if I lose 8 trades in a row, that's within kind of the bounds of what a normal losing streak would be with that kind of win rate. So, that's pretty normal. That kind of losing streak is pretty normal. So don't say ouch to Tom for losing the trade. He failed a trade, but it was a good setup. What Tom did was right. When he looked at this setup, the way he traded it and the way I'm going to explain it, it was all done correctly. It just failed. And, that happens. And you just, as a trader, you just have to be willing to accept that you're going to fail some trades. You can't win them all. Anyway, so let's look at this setup. Let's look at the concepts behind it. And the story behind price with this setup. So again, we have a bearish candle. We have a weekend gap. So this was over a weekend again. Then there's this candle here. This candle is a bit of a weird one to show up in a trend, but it is a weekend. It is the first candle of the week, so it's not surprising. When you look at this candle, what does it tell you? Who's in control of price? This is kind of an indecision candle, really. Buyers pushed up. They couldn't maintain that high. Sellers turned them around, pulled down. It's kind of indecision, but it's leaning towards the seller's side. I'd have to say that overall, for this candle here, sellers had more control of price. But I would also say that I would also say that it's indecision. Sellers had more control, but there's nothing definitive from sellers here. Next candle, sellers have complete control of price. Who is in control of price, you ask yourself, for this candle? Quite obvious, sellers had control. Price opened here, it closed down there, sellers had control, very easy. Then like bam, all of a sudden, we get this candle. Going from this strong candle where sellers had complete control to this candle on top of an area of support, this candle here, that tells you straight away that sellers are having trouble pushing through this area of support. Sellers are stuck on this area of support. Sellers can't move through this area of support. So that, to me, if I saw that, that like starts ringing alarm bells in my head. Sellers can't get through support. If buyers start to push up, I'm probably going to go long here. I'm quite confident that if buyers start to push up, there's a strong chance that they'll continue pushing up, because if the buyers were strong enough to stop such a strong move from the sellers, then they are likely strong enough to keep moving up. And in this case, they weren't. Like, they just weren't. I mean, you are going to fail trades. Like I said, it's just a part of trading. So buyers pushed up, but they couldn't really maintain that high. They pushed back down. Stop loss was hit here. They made another attempt at pushing up. So it's quite clear that there were buyers here. I mean, the buyers were here for a long time. They kept trying and they kept trying and they kept attempting. But in the end, sellers were just too strong. We got into this kind of ranging stage. I was talking about the stages of price movement before. We got into this ranging stage, price ranged, and eventually it pushed down. Oh, well, big deal. Price pushed down. It happens. It's a failed trade. It happens. Price is actually sitting on top of a support area again right now. This is an active chart, obviously. Euro AUD is sitting on top of a support area. So down on the 4-hour chart, we're starting to see potential signs of indecision right now. So that might be something. What about the 3-hour chart? Yeah, okay, so look at this. I didn't plan this because this is an active trade that's happening right now. So we are getting a little bit off track, but I think this is important because it's actually happening right now. It's live. So we've got sellers having overall control. Sellers are pushing down. I mean, it is not the cleanest trend. It pushed back up here, but overall sellers have control on this 3-hour chart. And then what happens? Sellers are starting to stall on top of this area of support. Sellers are stalling. Sellers tried to push down. Well, no, sorry. Buyers tried to push up with this latest candle. They couldn't quite manage it. Sellers pushed down, but they couldn't really get through this area of support. We went from this strong candle to this tiny little candle. And now this candle, it only opened 4 minutes ago, so it's got quite a long time to go. But this is something definitely to keep an eye on, because over the coming hours, the signs that this candle is showing is that sellers are struggling in this area. So this is something to look out for. It might not turn into anything. It's possible that sellers are just going to crash through this support area and keep moving down, but it's something to look out for. It would be going against a strong bearish trend, though, if you were to trade a reversal here, which is something I don't mind doing, but it's something to consider when you're planning to enter a trade. Anyway, let's forget about this example. And let's look at the other AUD-JPY. Let's go back to the other AUD-JPY trade. I wanted to show this example because this is a good setup to show. This one was also posted to the forum by, this one was traded by, this one was quite a popular trade actually. Anyway, yeah, it was posted on February 26, 2016. February 20, yeah, this one. It was this one. So how many examples did I pick to go through? All right, we're going to go through this example, and then we're going to go through 2 examples from today, and then we're going to do questions. We don't have much time left, so I'm going to breeze through these ones. Okay, so basically, what's the story behind this trade? Buyers for this candle here opened here, pushed up, buyers had complete control of price. Next candle along, opened here, pushed up, buyers had complete control of price. Next candle hits resistance, all of a sudden indecision forms. And this one's significant because if you remember, there was a trade from there. We already looked at this example trade here. Well, not example trade. We already looked at this actual trade here. This trade happened, how long was that before? It was between the 22nd and 25th. It was only a few days earlier that this trade happened. So we have a very strong history of price bouncing away from this area, a very strong history, a very recent history too. And price came back up to this area and all of a sudden, bam, indecision forms. So obviously what you're thinking here when you ask yourself who's in control of price, you're thinking indecision. Buyers had control of price, sellers are trying to take control of price. And there's a history of them doing this in the trade we took a few days ago here. And there's also a history of them doing this, where was it? Here. So, you know, it's kind of obvious what a trader would do here. They would look to take a short trade. And a lot of people did take this short trade. Some people, I have to say, did freak out and close out when it pulled back up to here. But, you know, some people, it really depends on your trading psychology. If you've been trading for a while, you kind of like, you start to get hardened to these kinds of moves and you don't really worry too much about them. But some people did freak out and they closed out early. But, you know, it just depends on the person. Some people held it all the way through. And I think this was the one that was split up by a weekend, or was that? Yeah, it was. Some people held this. This was the weekend here. There. So some people held this over the weekend. Some people closed it before the weekend. But we'll talk about this trade in more detail tomorrow. The point I wanted to show you was just the story behind buyers and sellers and why we saw this as a trade, the logic behind this trade. I'm going to quickly take a look at a failed trade from today, a trade that was posted to the forum today that failed. So this was an AUD/USD short trade. It was posted on the 5-hour time frame, but this person is new to the forum, and the 5-hour time frame is not something that we would normally trade on the forum. Most people ended up, well, the ones that took this trade ended up taking it on the 6-hour or the 4-hour. Either one of those. It doesn't really matter anyway. It doesn't really matter, I mean, what time frame was traded on, the 6-hour and the 4-hour. It was both. It was a setup on both those time frames. But yeah, let me look at the story of price with this setup, this recent setup. I wanted to show you guys something as recent as possible, and a failed trade happened today, so I thought, what better setup to show you? This one was kind of an obvious choice. Yeah, I'm going to show it to you on the 6-hour. It looks better here. So the story of price leading up to this candle. This candle here, very clearly indecision. Buyers tried to push up, sellers tried to push down. Price, this body, it kind of closed near its open. It was leaning towards buyers, but not really. I would say that this is mostly indecision. This candle here, who has control of price? Buyers. Opened, moved up, closed. This candle here, who has control of price? Buyers. Opened, moved up, closed. This candle here, who has control of price? This is clearly indecision. It's leaning towards sellers. It's quite clear here that sellers are taking control of price. So, you know, when this trade was posted to the forum, it made sense that there was a potential short here. And when you also look at the previous move here, there was a bounce from here just a few days earlier. And then there was another bounce from here a few days earlier. You know, it starts to become clear that, you know, this would be a viable setup. It would make sense to take this setup, but the setup failed. I mean, it just kind of like, bam, shot up. You know, that happens. Setups fail. But, you know, I want you guys to understand, like, it's not always going to work. When you're reading the story of candles, when you're reading the story of price, it's not always going to work. You're not always going to get it right. Sometimes price is not going to do what you expect it to do. But when it doesn't do what you expect it to do, in the end, what's important is that you have a good risk to reward ratio, which is what we'll discuss in more detail tomorrow. As long as you're winning more on your wins and you're losing less than you're winning more on your wins. So if you win, let's say, this is just an example number. Every win is worth £20. Every loss is worth £10. Even if you have only 5 wins and 5 losses, you're going to be profitable. Now, obviously, you're going to target more than 5 wins out of every 10 trades. You want to have 6, 7, 8 wins out of every 10 trades, but you're not always going to get that. There are always going to be losing trades. You can never be a perfect trader. 90%, not possible. 80% possible, I guess, in some situations. I used to trade at 80% accuracy a few years ago, but to do so, I had to take only the most perfect trade setups, and it was very hard. These days, I've started to kind of change that around a little bit, and I'm not as bothered about taking the perfect trade setups. And now my win rate last year, I believe, was 70%. This year, I'm hoping for it to be 70 to 75%, but if it's 60%, it's going to be fine this year because I want to be more profitable with 60% win rate than I was with 80% win rate. But I'm still hoping for 70, 75% because I like having a high win rate just because it makes me feel good. It's not something that you have to have, but it does make you feel good when you're winning a lot more than you're losing. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. We're going to be talking about win rates and ratios and all that kind of cool stuff tomorrow because that stuff is what really makes you a profitable trader. Let's quickly look at this EUR-JPY trade. This EUR-JPY trade was posted to the forum yesterday's 6-hour chart trade, EUR-JPY. This was a winning trade. Actually, this trade is pretty much the same as all the other trades we looked at. It's very, very similar. Not much point going over this. Screw this one. Because we're already at 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I want to do questions and answers real quick. We got like at least 20 minutes to do questions and answers. So let's get started. Questions and answers time, guys. If you're wondering why I'm going silent, it's because I'm waiting for the questions. Sorry, what's losing? No, this trade here it would have been a profitable trade. It would have been closed out by now. This one here. It was closed out by most people, I believe. Some people closed out early. You know what? I am going to quickly switch over to this before we get to questions and answers. Is that accurate? I've got no idea what you're talking about. Oh, sorry. Yeah, your question was split up, Jode. Notice that some reversals don't work well with volatile markets. Is that accurate? No, not really. I don't find that to be the case anyway. Let me move this thing here. I'm going to quickly read this out just so everyone understands where we're at. So these free webinars, the 3-day blitz, it's a series of webinars which is split over 3 days. Day 1 was support resistance. Today is candlestick analysis, and tomorrow is about entering and managing trades. So please keep the questions you're about to ask on subject. Today's question should be about candlestick analysis and support and resistance. Here's a quick list of what we talked about today. Today we talked about candles are not just patterns. They are the story of price. Learning to read candles and the story of candles is simple, but focus on groups of candles, not a single candle. You don't want to focus too much on reading only one candle. You want to look at the candle as a whole. You want to look at the whole story of price. There are 3 main stages of price movement: trending, ranging, transitionary. We look for indecision on an area of support and resistance to signal a potential trade. I've shown you that with a bunch of examples. Asking yourself who is in control of price is the best thing you can do when you're analyzing your charts or trading. So your question should be related to this stuff and anything we've discussed today or anything we discussed yesterday. Please keep your questions on subject. Any questions about entering trades, managing trades, stops, targets should be asked tomorrow, because I'm going to be going over that stuff tomorrow in tomorrow's webinar. And I don't want to have to repeat myself, answering your question today and then saying the exact same stuff tomorrow. It's pointless. The actual entry stuff is covered tomorrow. Please wait for that webinar. So yeah, now I'm going to start looking at the questions. Okay, this is a good question. Hello, Nick. With the reverse, also, I should just quickly say, if you feel I'm ignoring your question, just keep spamming it in the chat. There's so many questions coming in right now that I'm going to find it hard to read them all. So if you feel like I'm ignoring you, don't be offended. Just keep spamming it in the chat and I'll eventually see it. I'm going to spend quite some time answering questions, so we should be fine. All right, where was the question I had from Haroon? Oh, damn it. Haroon, hello, Nick. The reversal candles, with reversal candles, are you really bothered about the color of the body of the candle? Essentially, the question is, do you care what the body of the candle is in color? And the answer to that question is no, I don't care about the color of the body. That kind of ties into what I was talking about. Stop looking at candles as patterns. You know, when you look at a candle, you're just trying to read the story, what the candle is telling you. So what is this candle telling us? What is this indecision candle on this Euro JPY trade telling us? It's telling us that, you know, price is just struggling to break through this support area. If the body of this candle was a little bit white, so if the body of this candle had just gone up to here, just a tiny bit, instead of pushing down, it pushed up a tiny bit and it was white, why would that matter? Why would I be bothered? I wouldn't mind. It would be the same thing. It would still be indecision forming on top of an area of support. Just because it closed 10 pips higher than open or 10 pips lower than open, it doesn't really matter. You know, the body of the candle is not that important. I would prefer, I guess, for the body to be bullish. I would prefer for it to be white, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to stop me. It's not even going to